Continuing with the perfect intervals. You do, if you count the half steps, you can determine if a unison, fourth, fifth, or octave is perfect. But there is another way, as you read, which is comparing it to the major scale. Because when you go up the major scale, like this major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, the distance from the first note to the fourth note is always going to be a perfect fourth. If you go up C and the fourth note is F, excuse me, then that is a perfect fourth. The fifth note will be G, and of course the last note will be a perfect octave. So if you know the scale of the lower note, if this upper note is in that scale, it's a perfect interval. Of course, if it's a fourth, fifth, unison, or octave. So that's another way to check. And you can use a key signature or just go up the scale to make sure that an interval is perfect. So what if it's not perfect? The only other two options are, for us right now anyway, for fourths, fifths, and unison and octaves, is if it was a bit too small or too close together, like this one. This is not 7 half steps. This is 6 half steps. It is called a diminished, a diminished fifth. Of course, diminished means to make smaller. So from here to here is still a fifth, but it's not perfect. They're too close together. That's diminished, too close by a half step. This one is a fifth, but these are 8 half steps apart. This is a half step higher than a perfect fifth, so this is called augmented fifth. Of course, to augment means to make larger. So here's an example of a perfect fifth, 7 half steps apart. A is the fifth note of the D scale. This is diminished fifth because it's a half step too close together. And this is augmented fifth because it is a half step too big. Now this tells you, can you have an augmented octave or unisons or diminished? You can, but we're not going to go into that. There's some sort of esoteric theoretical things, no pun intended, that we don't have to really dig into. So don't worry about those possibilities. Here is a page of exercises to make sure you understand this. You can go through it as usual, turn off the video, and then turn it back on. We'll talk about it. What they want to know here is, if you go up this scale, will you reach that note? Which is another way of saying, is this a perfect interval, assuming they're all fourths, fifths, unisons, or octaves. And all of these are either fourths or fifths. So is E the fifth note of A? Yes, it is. That's a diatonic interval. That's a perfect fifth. Is G flat the fifth note of C? It is not. You probably remember the key signature for C major, no sharps and flats. So that's too small. That is non-diatonic. Here, remember, we go from the bottom note to the top note. G is the fifth note of C. That is a diatonic interval. A, the fifth note of D, so that's diatonic also. B flat has 2 flats, B flat and E flat. That's not E flat, so this is non-diatonic. F to C, if you go up the F scale, F, G, A, B flat, C, that is diatonic, or you could count the 7 half steps there. These are treble clef, of course. F sharp to B. B is the fourth note of F sharp major. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. And these are 5 half steps apart. That's diatonic. This one's diatonic also. G to D. D is the fifth note of G, following the key signature or counting 7 half steps. E flat to A flat is a diatonic interval, a perfect fourth, because A flat is the fourth note of E flat, and they're 5 half steps apart. But here's a C. Remember, C has no sharps and flats, so that cannot be diatonic. It's non-diatonic. It happens to be an augmented fourth. A flat has 4 flats, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. The second thing I said was E flat, so that's not diatonic. It's non-diatonic. But E to B, B is the fifth note of E major, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, so that one is diatonic. Now they want you to say if it's a perfect fourth or fifth if they were diatonic. So I'll just show you where those are, okay? This is a perfect fifth, no, perfect fifth, no, perfect fifth. perfect fourth, perfect fifth, perfect fourth, no, no, and a perfect fifth there. Now here's the same questions, but they give you notation. Sometimes they're melodic, sometimes they're harmonic, doesn't matter. They want to know, are they a fourth or are they a fifth, and perfect or something else. And if it is something else, what is it? B flat to F is a perfect fifth. A to D is a perfect fourth. A flat to E is bigger than a perfect fifth. That's an augmented fifth. Or you would put A5 for that one. By the way, P5, P4 for these. F to B is bigger than a perfect fourth. That's an augmented fourth. But CF is a perfect fourth, PF. D, G flat is smaller than a perfect fourth. That's a diminished fourth. Down here, FC, remember go from the low one to the high one. FC is a perfect fifth. E to B flat, a diminished fifth. A flat to D flat, a perfect fourth. B flat to E, an augmented fourth. G to D sharp, an augmented fifth. F sharp to B, a perfect fourth.